Academic institutions, and particularly business schools, serve an extremely important function that is above and beyond that of simply educating students. That is, they serve as a human resources or career center. Let me explain. So, as we know, many people believe that going to college, going to an academic institution to supposedly learn, is the primary way of furthering or advancing their career aspirations. They believe they cannot get a job that they desire in the future without undertaking this experience. And in the current system, for many, many students, that is true. That is accurate. So many career fields require at least a bachelor's degree. That is that level of education, regardless of the major, in order to qualify or meet the minimum qualifications for a job. Now, because of this educational requirement, many colleges have said we also need to facilitate the process of connecting our students with employers and preparing them for the transition from the academic environment to the job force. And really, this is for the school's own benefit as much as the students, because if the college is educating students and they are not effectively transitioning from the academic environment to the professional environment, then you have a significant problem. You're not going to likely have students to continue to enroll in that institution because they don't see the impact or results. But if the school can facilitate this transition, that is from academia to the work world, then they have something to brag about. Then they have the proof to show students that if you do come here, that you have the potential to go into this job, this career field, this career path. And so they use this as a means or method of recruiting students. But, and there always is a but in these scenarios, the way that colleges go about doing this is oftentimes not the most efficient and most effective. That is, the career development aspect of most schools is entirely voluntary. And particularly when you look at lower tier schools, that is, schools that are primarily letting in people who would otherwise not be academically qualified to go to higher tier institutions, that is, more academically prestigious institutions. That is, these institutions are focusing very hard on getting their students caught up and allowing them to succeed in the academic environment. And we talk in other videos about how this affects the academic rigor and ultimately the level of proficiency and knowledge of the students when they come out. But in terms of the career function, the fact that many of these schools still model other schools, that is, they make the career development function, the HR function, optional. It's not a mandatory part of their academic experience. If a student wants to prepare for interviews, go to networking events, learn how to dress and etiquette for interviews or the job force or the work world, many of these students coming to these lower tier academic institutions don't have exposure to this in the home. And thus, when they go to college, they don't recognize the value of it and don't take advantage fully of the career development functions at schools. And what I've seen, at least from my exposure and experience, is that many of these schools simply don't have the resources to dedicate to their career development functions. That is, most of the resources go to operations, salaries, things of that nature, and they don't have a lot of funds and extra support for this career function. And because of standardized academic evaluation standards by accrediting bodies and things like that, it becomes very difficult to integrate these types of courses, that is, courses that focus on career development, into the curriculum of the college. So say an educational program has between 120 credit hours and 130 credit hours that is required of a student to graduate. And they mix in all the general education, the liberal arts requirements that are there for the student to complete before they enter their major courses. And then they enter their major courses and then they graduate and go on to whatever they're going to do. Well, it's very difficult to find ways to integrate mandatory career development courses for the student. And every type of student is going to have different career development needs. That is, you're going to have different career development or preparation requirements for a business student than you would for a medical student or an engineering student or a student going into literature or writing or performing arts or something of that nature. So generally, the career development stuff needs to happen within the schools or the academic college or program in which they're studying. So if you're studying business, much of the career development practice needs to happen within the business school. Generally, you only spend the equivalent of about 3 semesters or say 30 to 45 credit hours at most within that particular school or program of study, that is your major program. It's very difficult based upon the accreditation standards for these programs, most schools have a very difficult time of fitting in the required number of academic hours. And the courses that fit into the academic program have to meet academic standards assessed by the accrediting bodies, which focus almost entirely on the subject matter specific courses that apply to a given field of study. So, say finance, you would have to have electives and things of that nature that are focused on finance. You wouldn't be able to have a 3 credit hour course that counts in your major that focuses just on career development. And so the reason I say all this is there's a problem in how colleges and universities are integrating the element of career development within their academic programs. The majority of students go to college because they want to pursue a given career path or field. And the college does a poor job of teaching them that if they actually do want to pursue that, getting a college degree or getting a major is actually only equally or sometimes even less important than developing skill sets that come independent of college and networking, that is making connections in a given industry and preparing for the steps it takes to get into that industry. So my assertion is this: colleges, particularly lower tier colleges, need to dramatically revamp the amount of effort and resources they put into the career development function. And there needs to be a realignment of academic standards that incorporates the aspect of career development into degree programs. That is, the ability to get academic credit that counts towards degree programs for taking career development courses or undertaking career development practice, such as internships and things of that nature, that allow it to fit more readily within that school or that academic program major's course of study. Now, this is just my opinion. Again, I want to hear your thoughts on it. What should be the role of career development centers or colleges with regard to career development? If you have an opinion, jump into the comments below, or please go over to thebusinessprofessor.com, start a discussion in the forum. But regardless, I hope to see you around the platform soon. Until then, take care.